Okay, so the next piece that we're reviewing is factoring by grouping. So out of these two examples, please cross out the bottom two. We will not be doing those two. All right, so number 21, factor by grouping. You know you have to do factor by grouping mainly when you have 4 terms. So when you have 4 terms, your brain should think right away, I need to be grouping my terms. So the purpose of this is exactly by the word. We're going to group up the terms. So you're going to put a parentheses around the first 2 and a parentheses around the second 2, like so. Okay, so for number 21, what you're going to do now is you're going to factor out the greatest common factor like we did yesterday. You're going to factor out the greatest common factor of these 2. So between 2 and 3, they don't have a common factor other than 1, so we can move on. Between h cubed and h squared, that you choose, remember, the smallest exponent, so this is going to be h squared. Now we got to figure out what goes in the parentheses. Well, h squared times what gives me 2h cubes? That's going to be 2h. Remember, so we got 1 times 2 is 2, h squared times h is h to the third. Drop down your minus. H squared times what gives you 3h squared? That's just going to be 3. Okay, so the next piece we're going to do is look at this. Between 6 and 9, what do we have in common? A factor of 3. In between h and no h, that means that we don't have an h in common. So the only thing that these two have in common, is a factor of 3. And it's going to be a factor of positive 3 because this right here is a positive. So you're going to put a plus 3 right here. Open up your parentheses. So now you got to figure out 3 times what gives you 6h? That's going to be 2h. Drop down your minus. 3 times what gives you 9? That would be 3. So in factor by grouping, these two must be the same. If they are not the same, then it's either not factorable or you did something wrong. These two have to be the same. So your next piece to the answer is to bring that common one down like this. So that's where this came from. And to figure out what this one is, you just put the first term and the first term right here, the terms that are in front. And that's how you do factor by grouping. I'm still going to go over number 23. Nope, I mean number 22. Number 22. Okay, so moving on to number 22. Once again, your first step is to put parentheses around the first 2 and the last 2, like so. So out of these 2, what do they have in common? They have a z squared in common. Not a number because this is 1 and 7, but they do have z's in common. Pick the smallest exponent. So here you are going to pull out a z squared. So z squared times what gives you z cubed? That's going to be z. For my z's, I normally put lines so they don't look like 2s or 7s. Z squared times this. Z squared times this piece needs to give you 7z squared, so that's going to be a positive 7. All right, now between these two, I chose to do this example, not the other two, because these two are both negative. This right here is negative, so that means you're going to pull out a negative right here. So between 5 and 35, the greatest common factor is 5, and it does not have a z in common, so you can't pull out a z. Open up your parentheses. All right, so here, 5 times what? Sorry, negative 5 times what gives you negative 5z, so it's going to be a z. Negative 5 times what gives you a negative 35? Positive 7. Once again, negative 5 times positive 7 is negative 35. Notice that these two are the same. That's a good thing. That means I get to move on. So drop down that common factor, this one and this one. And then what's in front of both factors is the other piece of your answer. Z squared and negative 5. And we're done. So this is how you do factor by grouping. If you have any questions, please ask me tomorrow in class.